In this video, I wanted to talk about the tactical reload, or how to do a tactical reload. So let me go ahead and clear this up. This isn't, saying the tactical reload, which should actually be called a magazine exchange or topping off your gun. This is about doing a reload in a tactical manner. So first off, let's talk about the definition of tactic or tactics or tactical. Tactics are actions, they're planned actions that are basically there to achieve a specific end. So kind of like herding cattle. Your tactic for that is to have one in the sides and the rear and maybe in the front to channelize them into a certain area, and to have a runner on the outsides to chase off any stragglers. That's tactics right there. But does it have to do with kicking indoors or anything? No, but tactics is a very loose thing. It's just a planned way of doing things to reach a specific end. You don't need a tactical horse in order to be, applying herding tactics or whatever, cattle herding tactics or whatever. So basically, that's my little soapbox rant on tactical, and that word being used to describe gear: tactical boots, tactical knife, tactical eye pro. So there's three types of reloads. All right. So at least from my assessment, there's retention reload, where basically, okay, I'm dry, so I'm going to retain that magazine, and then I'm going to get my fresh magazine and get back into action. Then there's the magazine exchange or topping off. Okay, got a lull in the fight, so I'm just going to top it off and retain that magazine or dump it, whatever. So then the next one is your emergency reload, or your speed reload. I like to say it's more of a non-retention or maybe emergency reload, depending on your situation. This is more of Charlie's in the wire and you didn't have time to fix your bayonet. So basically, boom, 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 click. Okay, so basically, got to get the new mag out and get back on target as fast as possible. It's supposed to be the most expedient or efficient way of reloading Freedom Seeds, right? So you got those three types. Now I want to go over how to use them in context in a tactical manner. So all three of these skills, any instructor is going to tell you, go home and dry fire practice these things. And it's mostly the last two that they talk about. They don't really talk about retention, because on the flat range we always have time. Most people being taught are civilians. You'll be able to pick up that magazine. So in a military setting, or if you're trying to prepare for Red Dawn because your life is really that boring, then fine. You're going to want to retain those magazines, because you're not going to be able to go on Gun Mag Warehouse and go get more magazines after you're done losing them in the field. So basically, in context, these three reloads are as follows. So first one, retention reload. This was what I did in country most of the time, even when we were doing like our CQB or whatever, training or for real. Basically, bang, 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 click, and you communicate, hey, I'm out, and then you pop off. And the specific way that I did this was, I was not looking at my gun. I would chicken wing it or have it low. I would have it in my armpit, angled a little high, or I would have it actually chicken winged in, and I would extract the magazine, and I would be using my eyes, not on my gun or on my magazines. I'll be using my eyes and ears to listen in to what's going on around me and to see what my team is doing. That way I don't have to ask what they're doing or be told. I can take initiative, and while I'm reloading, I can either move into the stack, like if we're doing Mounttown, I can just move into the stack while I'm finishing my reload, or I can move out of somebody's way because there's an uncleared area near me, so I can move out of the way while I'm doing my reload. You're focused on other things other than the gun. That's how you remain an asset to your team. You're focused on their actions and you're trying to anticipate their movements. That's the sign of a good teammate, is one that tries to do that, right? And takes initiative. That's why the military loves soldiers that take initiative, right? But anyways, I'm retaining the magazine and then I'm going in. And I'm not sitting there trying to go as fast as I can to the point where I'm fumbling. I'm retaining the magazine, but I'm not wasting the time. I'm not wasting time. I'm going at a normal pace and I'm getting stuff done while I'm quickly checking everything out, and then I'm ready to go. And maybe I communicate that, maybe people see that I'm good, and all I have to do is give a thumbs up, get my place in a stack if we're doing CQB or whatever. Now, I did a lot of that when we were just securing a compound, being in the defense or whatever, where I still retained my magazines, even though we weren't going anywhere. It was just a habit, just retain my magazines, because I might up and go somewhere and I want to keep my magazines on me. I don't want them stolen, because that would still happen. Or they would buy the A&A. The A&A would like to steal magazines and whatever they could. But anyways, you got used to retaining your magazines, especially if you were doing a movement, like a bounding movement, and you had to reload when you got to your next point of cover or whatever. And then, of course, that's basically the context. The best context I can give you is a military context. Law enforcement may end up doing a retention reload, like if you're part of a SWAT element, but probably not. One of the big things overseas is not having your gear used against you. So the enemy could pack like Simtex or C4 or some explosive in a magazine, use that to booby trap something. That's one of the big concerns that was around during Vietnam with the C ration cans. You still have those concerns with MREs. Anything that's left over, the enemy could probably try to use. So, and that's still a threat today. But so that's in a military setting, where those of you like your Red Dawn settings, you're going to want to have your magazines around, because you're not always going to be able to replace them. I know if I had lost magazines in country, I would have gotten a nice slap upside the head from a squad leader, and I'd have probably been given a magazine, but we would have been down a magazine in our squad, and that's not a good thing, especially when you're just dropped into an area and told, hey, secure it. In a combat setting, retain your magazine. That's a good context to have it in. As a civilian, probably not. And as a law enforcement officer, probably not going to be vital. So, anyways, the next one is going to be the magazine exchange, or topping off your gun. I've done this a couple of times. So it does have a military application, it has a law enforcement application, and a civilian application. And I'll try to do all three. So a military application, boom, 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 boom. We're dealing with like a counterattack, we're holding them off, or we're about to assault, and we've got a second, and I know that I'm low on ammo. We just got the command that we're going to go, but I'm holding on them, and then I hear the command down the line that we're about to start moving, or somebody else is going to start moving, and I'm going to have to cover them. There's no reason to have 4 rounds left in your magazine, or even 10 rounds. You want all rounds ready to sustain suppression. And this is, I got to go on another rant about suppression in another video, but I'll refrain from that here. But anyways, you want to top off. So you hear the command, you have a second, you exchange them out, and you're ready to go. That's a military context. Or if you're doing CQB and you're like, okay, maybe you're one of those who likes to have your tracers actually set up. When I was in country, I didn't see my tracers go off. I just didn't. Some people say they did. I saw them going on a 240 when they were trying to mark targets, but typically my red tracers, I couldn't tell. So anyways, for some people that like to have them marked, if you see a tracer, whatever, just keep shooting until you're empty if you're still seeing an enemy. But anyways, like if you're in CQB and you just expended a lot of rounds in like 2 rooms or whatever, then you might want to, when you're in the stack, go, as you're making your way to getting into the stack, go ahead and exchange out the magazine and be ready to enter the next room, just to be ready. So that's in context for the magazine exchange for the military. For police, you've probably seen it plenty of times where they shoot like 10 rounds out of 18, like they have a Glock 17 or something, or maybe they have 15 rounds or 16 rounds having a Glock 22. And then they just go ahead and exchange out the magazine when they after they down someone, just to be topped off. There's a law enforcement application. You see that with SWAT as well. The same thing as the military, how they top off before they go into another room, because they're like, well, I got 10 rounds or less. So they just want to be ready, right? So anyways, the civilian aspect is pretty much the same. You got someone down and you shot a lot of rounds. You probably are carrying a small gun, so you probably have like between 1 and 3 rounds left. And then you're just like, okay, I got time, take that 2 seconds to go ahead and top off. So there you go. There's three I think is the most relevant for using that reload. Now the last one is the emergency reload, or the Charlie's in the wire and I forgot to put on my bayonet reload. So basically with this one in a military context, you've still got you know, a line of people that are shooting, and you're out in the middle of a field, in the middle of no man's land. Like, I actually remember this certain scenario where we were bounding from compound to compound, and it was a good 100, 200 meters between each compound, and we had to run to each compound, but we were advancing on a compound that we knew we were taking fire from. And you know, you have to basically keep your eyes on it and move forward, or you bound. So during the emergency or speed reload, or whatever you want to call it, basically you're reloading in a military context. You know, you're out in the middle of the field and you're in a knee, or you're having to lay down suppression. You need to keep up that rate of fire or whatever. So there's that. Then in a law enforcement setting, they reach slide lock a lot, and maybe you still got someone advancing, and you need to get your gun up and ready immediately. So that happens a lot too with law enforcement. As a citizen or as a civilian, if you're carrying an 8-shot gun or whatever, and you just machine gun into them or whatever, probably going to want to have that thing back up and running and ready to go as soon as possible. This has happened. It's kind of rare, but it's happened. So those are the contexts. So knowing when to use any of those reloads is doing a tactical reload. It's being tactical. It's using tactics. It's like, okay, well, it's probably, you know, it's probably best if I top off my gun now, or it's probably best if I top off my gun before I go ahead and move to my next area of cover, because once I get there, I'm going to want to start suppressing and helping my buddy out, like if you're in a military law enforcement setting or whatever. So I don't want to get to that piece of cover and have only 2 rounds left in my magazine and be a liability, because now he's got to cover me from the area that I'm supposed to be helping him lay fire down. So thinking tactically, thinking ahead, and being an asset is a very big deal. So anyways, some training standards. I would basically say you got to do your flat range drills, right? And this is drills. This isn't like a course of fire. This isn't a Bill Wilson course of fire. This isn't a 1 to 5 course of fire. This isn't a dot torture, you know, course of fire. And I call it course of the fire because a drill is something you drill in to where you get used to it, to where it's on a subconscious level. If you're doing any of these courses of fire as a drill, you're doing it wrong. It's supposed to be a status check and a skill check, and you're supposed to be doing different ones, not all the same one. You're not supposed to be getting used to it. You're supposed to be shaking it up. So drills are things like practicing that retention reload to where you don't have to look at the gun. I know some people say, well, I'm just doing a momentary check just to make contact and then get it in there. What do you even need to do that for? It doesn't make sense. If you need to look at your gun because you're fumbling around, then look at it and be done with it. Do you need to pre-position it? No, you don't. You don't. And 99% of the time, you're not even going to end up going to this position, because you're not going to be like, okay, I got to remember to have a 45-degree angle on my elbow and, you know, wrist and stuff, and I'm going to hold it out here, kind of like I'm presenting it like a middle finger, and I'm going to be watching them through my gun as I do my textbook reload. That's not how it's going to work. You gotta practice and you gotta train first, and then you gotta practice it into a subconscious manner, like drill. Like if you see people in boot camp on the drill field, they're doing those things over and over again until it becomes second nature. Left shoulder arms, right shoulder arms, and they do that for hours. That's drilling. And so with that said, you do these reloads as drills on the flat range, and then you try to apply them in things like force on force. Maybe you do airsoft. try to apply those things from different positions or whatever. So if you see me reloading, I'm typically reloading down here. It's a relaxed position. I'm at 90 degrees, my arms are relaxed when I get to reload. It's close to my body. That's not intentional, that's just what my body wants to do when I'm doing a reload. If I have a bullpup, I'm typically looking around. You should not be looking at your gun. The key to this is when you're reloading, you are taking the time, not taking your time, but taking the opportunity that those seconds give you to reassess what's going on. You're watching what your team is doing in a military setting. In law enforcement, you're watching your surroundings and the other officers around you. As a civilian, you're looking at the situation around you and thinking, maybe I should be at a different point of cover, or maybe I should be firing back from a different area. Maybe this would be a good time to, once I get this done, go ahead and, get on my phone and call the dispatch and let them know what just went down. So take the time during the reload to focus on things that are actually important. This is the tool that you're using to get the job done and apply these tactics. This is not the focus of the reload. The reload should be done automatically, and it should be, all those three should be capable of being done in the dark without being able to see it. So that's basically the thing. You should not have to look at your gun while you're doing it. Unless there's a problem, there's no reason to sit there and look at what's going on. So anyways, with all that said, that's my recommendation. Train properly, practice often, good practice, consistency, and then apply it in a force-on-force setting if you can. Play airsoft, do whatever, play, I don't care. Don't play paintball, because paintball guns don't do the same thing. Heck, if there's a course that does simunitions or whatever, I know Warrior Post Society, they do a lot of CQB stuff or force-on-force stuff, which is pretty cool. So, do the best you can to be consistent and to think. And that's a big thing about the tactical reload, is your thinking. And that's what it requires. It requires planning in order to take action. It's a planned action to reach a specific end. So think and observe, and you need to observe in order to think ahead. You need to collect data in order to understand what your next move is going to be. And that requires you to not be staring at your gun while you're reloading or looking through your gun. There's other things that you can be doing other than doing this, like staring at your gun while you're reloading. So anyways, with all that said, I appreciate you guys watching this, and I will talk to you guys later.